Alright, as you can see, there's a major cyclone working its way up the East Coast throughout the day today. And as it turns out, this is going to be affecting weather in the Northeast for basically the rest of the week. So before we get really diving into this cyclone, it's interesting to see where it started. And it actually originated in the Southeast. It brought about 10 tornadoes to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida yesterday. And then you'll see this low pressure system move off the coast and intensify. You can see that it's intensifying because right here, it's light rain, maybe a couple thunderstorms here and there, and then right when it moves off the coast, all that warm water below it really just starts fueling the system, and you can see those rainfall rates really start to pop. And you can also pay attention to the millibars. Right here it's about 1,000 millibars. As it moves off the coast, drops down to 986, 982, and then eventually 970. And that's what's going to be affecting the Northeast forecast up until Friday and Saturday this week. So it's really interesting to dive in and really see what this storm is doing. This is showing where the storm is right now. You can see it has moved off the coast. And what's typical with these kind of storms, if you see it start to move off the coast, a lot of times it'll just continue in that direction. It'll go off into the Atlantic. And this storm is pretty weird in how it's behaving. So you can see it's already dropped down to 973 millibars. In case you aren't really comfortable with millibars and what that exactly means, just take my word for it that 973 is extremely low. If this was right over the Northeast, this would be a crippling cyclone. As it turns out, it's farther into the Atlantic, but it's still going to be affecting Northeast weather. So as we click through the day Wednesday, you can see it looks like the storm's just going to continue to move off into the Atlantic, and then something really interesting happens, and this is rather rare and uncommon. This low, you'll see it start to turn up, and then it actually moves back west, and it comes all the way back almost off the coast of Massachusetts. And this is showing the wind speeds around this low. So where you see these purples, that is where you're getting 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. And you can see those extreme winds are going to be affecting the Northeast basically Thursday, Friday, early Saturday. And this low at this point is still 983 millibars. This is about 5 a.m. in the morning on Friday. And you can see this low has turned back, and it is bringing extremely strong winds to the Northeast. It's also going to be bringing rain and a little bit of snow, but we'll take a look at that in a second. So what's the mechanism that caused this low to turn back around? Because that's pretty weird. You don't often see a low move off into the Atlantic and then move back into the Northeast. And as it turns out, if I zoom out here, you can see there's a giant high pressure up in Canada. And it's 1067. Again, if you're not really familiar with millibars, take my word for it that 1067 millibars is an extremely high. And what you can see is around a high, it's clockwise circulation. So on the eastern side of this high, you see these strong winds that are going to be pushing down from the north to the south. And even though it looks pretty far away, it is these winds and this massive high pressure system that is actually pushing that low back into the Northeast. It's really an awesome connection that you see this high pressure all the way up in Canada is going to be affecting rain and snow for the Northeast throughout this week. So it's these winds from the high that are pushing this low back into the East Coast. So let's take a look at some of the precipitation that's going to be coming in associated with this low. You can actually see it on the screen. This is when it's farther off into the Atlantic, a little bit farther away from the Northeast. So it's not really bringing all that much precipitation. This is right now, about 1 p.m. on Wednesday. And you can see it is bringing a little bit of cold air down. So like I said, the high, it's clockwise circulation. The opposite is true around a low pressure system, counterclockwise. So on the left side of this low, you have winds going from north to south and bringing a little bit of that cold air down. Well, that cold air, as you can see, is allowing some snow to fall in northern parts of Maine. Again, this is 1 p.m. on Wednesday. This is really the first effects that we're seeing of this massive cyclone. And the reason I call it a bomb cyclone, the definition for that is it drops 24 millibars in 24 hours. So how we saw it was 1,000 millibars, it dropped down to 975 in less than 24 hours. That makes it a bomb cyclone. So this is the first effects of this bomb cyclone. You can see some snow working into northern Maine, and then some of the rain bands start to show up about 7 p.m. tonight. Again, 7 p.m. Wednesday, we still see a dash of snow in the very northern parts of Maine. Again, that's just because it's a little bit colder up there. So the precipitation is able to fall as snow. And then as this low moves back into the East Coast, you can see it's now these lines, isobars, lines of constant pressure, went from being kind of west to east. Now they're north to south, and that's because this low is actually moving back towards the East Coast at this point. You can see basically all of Maine at about 1 a.m. Thursday morning, going to be covered in rain. Very northern and western parts of the state will be getting that snow. By about 7 a.m. on Thursday, so this is tomorrow morning. I don't know if you're still commuting or if the coronavirus has you working from home, but if you are commuting and you live in Maine, complete rain. If you live in northern New Hampshire and northern Vermont, you're going to be getting some snow with this one. And again, that's just because a little bit of that cold air has been able to pull down. You can see some heavier rainfall rates building into Maine throughout the day Thursday. That's, it's not severe thunderstorms. We're probably not going to get lightning or hail with this, but that's some pretty heavy rainfall rates. That's about 0.1 inches per hour. And you can see that snow is sticking around in Vermont and New Hampshire. It's light rates, but it's there for long enough that we're actually going to get some decent accumulations. And we'll take a look at those in a second. So that's the thing about this storm. It doesn't just move in real quick and then move back out. That high pressure system really has it pinned against the East Coast for a number of days. This is now moving into early Friday morning at about 1 a.m. And you can see that low has actually moved back into our screen. It is now almost hitting Massachusetts. And what I was hoping was that because of how strong this is, 976 millibars, very low, I was hoping that the strong winds around this storm would be able to bring down some of that cold air. So mixed with all this moisture, we could get some snow. I was really hoping this could be about 1 foot to 2 feet of snow, but it looks like the temperatures are just going to be a little bit too warm. So this is 1 a.m. Friday morning. This low has actually moved back into our screen, almost hitting Massachusetts. You can see those heavy rainfall rates could have a chance of hitting Boston and eastern Massachusetts. And then rain really continues throughout the day Friday associated with this massive cyclone. You can see this is 7 a.m. on Friday. Southern Maine getting rain, majority of New Hampshire, almost all of Massachusetts, and then even this band of rain working from central New York through eastern Pennsylvania. And again, it doesn't just move off. It really hangs out all day Friday. Going to be bringing just wet, cloudy conditions to majority of New England. By about 1 p.m. on Friday, all of Massachusetts still in rain. That rain has moved into southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, southern Maine. And then we're finally going to see it start to move off as we get into Friday evening and early Saturday morning. So that's kind of the precipitation that we're going to see with that. Again, a little bit of snow in Maine, a little bit of snow in Vermont, New Hampshire. Mostly rain with this one though, because the temperatures, as it turns out, are just a little bit too warm. This is showing the total accumulated precip. There's actually going to be some decent rain with this one because it sticks around for a number of days. So even though we don't get the craziest rates, it's not severe thunderstorms, it sticks around long enough where we can really accumulate some good rainfall with this. So I'm just going to click through all the way to Friday at about 1 p.m. This is how much rain you will have picked up by Friday at 1 p.m. You can see majority of Maine, over an inch of rain with this one. As you go into New Hampshire and Massachusetts, you start to see those heavier rainfall rates. Again, that's just because you're closer to the coast, so there's more moisture. And it's also extremely windy, so that wind is going to be taking moisture from this warm Gulf Stream and just dumping it right on these coastal locations that you can see in southern Maine. Inch of rain. That was a nice little rhyme right there. New Hampshire, you're going to be more like 0.5 to an inch range. eastern Massachusetts, this is going to be a pretty good rainstorm for you guys. You're looking at maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain. Vermont, you're more 0.2 inches to about 1/2 inch. And then we start to see it fill into New York as we get kind of later in this storm's lifetime. Working into Friday and Saturday, you can see northern and eastern parts of New York have maybe picked up 0.1 to 0.3 inches of rain. So the majority of this storm is really hitting Maine. They're going to be getting snow and 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain. Now the map that everybody in the Northeast loves to look at, accumulated snowfall. You can see this is going to be affecting Maine throughout the day today. This cyclone is already bringing some interesting weather to the Northeast. And you can see by 7 a.m. on Thursday, northern parts of Maine have already picked up about 2 to 4 inches. Well, really the northern half of the state has picked up at least 1 inch of snow at this point. It would be interesting to see if this bullseye that's showing the accumulated snowfall by 1 p.m. on Thursday, be interesting to see if this bullseye can move just a little bit farther south, so then we could get this 2 to 5 inches into Vermont and New Hampshire. As it turns out, by about 1 p.m. on Thursday, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire may have picked up 1 to 2 inches of snow at this one. Could maybe get a dash of that 4 to 5 inches, but as of right now, it's looking a little bit too far north. We'll keep our eye on it to see if it moves farther south for early Thursday. By Thursday evening, though, those 2 to 5 inch accumulations do start to work their way into the higher elevation places of Vermont and New Hampshire. And really right here, there's a bullseye that shows about maybe 5 to 8 inches in really northern New Hampshire. And at this point, really the majority of Vermont has picked up about 1 inch to 3 inches of snow. The people always comment on my videos asking about snow in New York. Looks like the majority of the snow that you're going to get in New York is about maybe 1 inch up in the very, very northern parts of the state. The rest of the state is mostly going to be rain with this one. Again, this is going to be affecting the Northeast throughout the next few days though, so it's going to be interesting to see what this storm ends up doing. I'm hoping that the strong winds associated with this, the 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts, can actually bring down some cold air. It's wishful thinking, but if that happens, these 2 to 4 inch accumulations could actually end up being over a foot. Again, me just wishing for an exciting weather forecast. So if you want to stay updated with this system as it develops, you can subscribe to my channel. And really 2 questions for you. Did you learn something in this video? And did you enjoy this video? If you answered yes to either of those, I urge you to subscribe to my channel so that you can see more of my videos in the future. I do forecast videos every single day, so you could check out my forecast playlist where I'm about to film 2 more forecast videos right after this one. Thanks for watching.